The first game is Astral Outcast. It caught my eye with its unique style and layered survival mechanics. Let's start with what I liked. First off, the visual style. The game has this distinct, stylized look that really sets the mood. It's not just about graphics, it's about atmosphere. And Astral Outcast nails that isolated, alien survival feel. Then there's the gameplay depth. This isn't your typical eat and sleep survival game. You have to manage your air supply, hydration, nutrition, and even radiation levels. It constantly forces you to make meaningful decisions to stay alive. The story is surprisingly engaging. It unfolds gradually, keeping you curious about the world and what happened before you crash landed here. I also really enjoyed the crafting system. It's more than just building tools, it's about being creative. Solving problems, building contraptions, and even tackling light puzzles with materials you scavenge adds a lot of variety to the experience. But personally, I did run into a couple of things that didn't quite click for me. One of the biggest hurdles is that you need to learn a lot before you can really enjoy it. The game doesn't hold your hand, so expect a bit of a learning curve up front. And while the survival mechanics are deep, I felt like there's not a whole lot going on besides that. So if you're someone who loves exploration, narrative twists, or action-heavy gameplay, you might find it a bit slow. But if you're into craft-heavy sandbox survival games, this will probably hit the right notes for you. I was planning to release this video before the game launched, but I was a bit slow. Hostile Lands is already out, and you can grab it for just $5. Here's what stood out to me. The visual style is great, clean pixel art with a cool, retro feel. The music's energetic, and the setting mixes post-apocalyptic vibes with space adventure, which gives the game a unique identity. There's a good variety of guns and upgrades, and the bosses are fun and distinct. Plus, controls are super simple, so it's easy to dive in. Now, a couple of things that didn't quite work for me, personally. If you die, you start from scratch, which feels harsh, and the second boss has a pretty steep difficulty spike, which can throw you off.
I came here to avenge the Divine Doctor.
Burning Sword, Death's Son had a playable demo earlier in May, but it's now closed. I managed to try it out, and here are a few of my thoughts. What stood out to me right away was the visual style. The game looks great, with detailed environments and a strong artistic direction. The ancient Chinese setting gives it a unique flavor, and the combat system is quite versatile, offering a lot of depth and different ways to approach each fight. That said, personally, I found the combat a bit too complex for my taste. There's a steep learning curve, and while I can see how it would appeal to fans of technical combat, I tend to prefer something a little more intuitive and casual. Maybe with more time invested, I'd have gotten into it, but it didn't immediately click for me. If you're into Souls-like games and enjoy challenging combat systems, though, there's a good chance you'll appreciate what this game has to offer. And by the way, some good news, a new demo is planned for June 6, 2025, and it might come with new updates and improvements. To the Grave, the Wildlands of Faenora is a hand-drawn pixel art RPG that immediately grabbed my attention with its visual style and rich fantasy world. What I really liked was the amount of character customization. You can tweak your abilities, builds, and playstyle quite a bit. The game also leans into its RPG elements, which gives it depth and replayability. But there were a few things that didn't fully click for me. The combat felt a bit too simple. It reminded me of old-school Pokemon games. I would have liked to see a bit more animation or dynamism there. Also, the number of setup options at the beginning felt a little overwhelming. I do enjoy deep RPGs like classic Fallout, but in this case, the complexity hit a bit too fast. And speaking of fast, the difficulty ramped up quickly for me. That might be intentional to keep things challenging, but personally I prefer a smoother learning curve. BloodRush Undying Wish is one of those games that grabs you quickly, especially if you're into pixel art like I am. The visual design is fantastic, with beautifully crafted levels and strong atmosphere. The controls are simple and intuitive, but still allow for a nice variety of moves, which makes the combat feel smooth and responsive. The story also stands out. It's not just background noise, it actually explores some philosophical themes, which gives the narrative unexpected depth. I also appreciated the balance between fast-paced action and slower, quieter moments. It gives you space to breathe between battles. And on top of that, the skill tree adds a nice layer of progression and choice. Now, on the downside, the beginning was a bit confusing. It took me some time to understand what was going on, who I was playing as, and why I was doing what I was doing. It's the kind of game that drops you in and expects you to figure things out, which can be a bit disorienting at first.
The Krell swarmed over the Earth. Unstoppable.
Temporal Titans is a clever spin on the tower defense genre, and as a big fan of time travel, I really enjoy the way it lets you go back and adjust your tactics mid-game. It adds a cool layer of strategy you don't usually get. The visuals and animation aren't groundbreaking, but they're definitely polished and pleasant. And unlike most tower defense games, this one actually has a story, which is a nice bonus. The RPG elements also add some depth and give you reasons to come back and try different builds. Now, to be fair, you'll probably only enjoy this if you already like tower defense. If that genre doesn't click with you, this game might not either. Captain Carnage really surprised me in a good way. The visuals are slick, and the various move effects add a nice punch to the action. The game has a fast-paced flow, mixing platforming and combat in a way I've personally found really enjoyable. I also like the concept of playing as a superhero-style character that you can develop as you go. The mix of melee and range attacks keeps the combat fresh, and the controls are easy to pick up, which helps you jump right in. There's also a fun, slightly unserious vibe to the whole thing. Some of the dialogue might come off a little edgy, but honestly, I think that's intentional and fits the tone. Different enemy types push you to adjust your tactics, which adds just enough challenge without slowing the game down. As for downsides, honestly, nothing really stood out as a negative at this point. It just felt solid and fun. UNSHAKEN really hit the sweet spot for me. The visuals, story, mechanics, and music, everything just clicked. It mixes cyberpunk and 80s vibes with some great Japanese culture elements, and it works beautifully. You play as a mysterious lone warrior who calmly takes down enemies. Very cool. I'm a big fan of platformers and action, and this one delivers both. The pixel art is bright and stylish, and the music, I seriously want the soundtrack. The difficulty also feels just right, challenging, but not frustrating. If I had one small nitpick, it's that the animation could be a bit smoother, but honestly, it might just be an artistic choice. Totally subjective. Either way, UNSHAKEN is definitely on my wishlist. Not sure his Part 1 was any good, but let's talk about Part 2. It's a classic beat-em-up with strong final fight vibes. You get 8 playable characters, which is more than most games in the genre, though I didn't notice a huge difference between them. The visual style stands out, not just pixel art, but the way the characters are drawn and animated. Unique, though maybe not for everyone. What threw me off was the difficulty spike. You breeze through enemies, then the first boss one-shots you. I tried different characters, but none stood a chance. Maybe I missed something, but it felt like a pretty steep jump. Rocs Odyssey, oh man, what a visually stunning game. I love the art style, the colors, the animations, everything just pops. The controls feel spot on. Not too simple, not too complex, and the tutorial does a great job of easing you in without dragging. Enemies are varied and fun, even if they're not always the smartest, but that's a minor gripe. The boss fights really stood out tough, beautiful, and very much in the style of classic 8 and 16-bit era games. You'll need to learn patterns and earn your wins, which I loved. There's also a solid story backing it all up. Honestly, this one's definitely going on my wishlist.